The era of Eric Adams is underway. The new New York City mayor, however, already coming under fire for vowing to keep the private sector COVID vaccine mandate in place, previously under de Blasio. He's also considering whether or not to mandate boosters for New York City workers. Meantime, Manhattan's new district attorney, Alvin Bragg, allegedly told his staff he doesn't plan to prosecute several crimes, one of those being resisting arrest. The new DA also including the decriminalization and non-prosecution for marijuana possession and trespassing. Our panelists are here with reaction. Happy to be joined by Rebecca Walser, a tax attorney. Also joining us, John Thomas, Republican strategist, and Wendy Patrick, Newsmax columnist. Great to see everyone here today. John, we'll start with you here. What do you make of the DA's new approach to dealing with crime in New York City?
Well, you know, we already know what happens when prosecutors don't prosecute violent crime is that criminals continue to criminal. You can look no further than in Los Angeles. You can look in San Francisco and quite frankly, even New York. So we can expect that it's going to get worse. And this is a really sad thing, both for the American people, but even sadder for the Democratic Party, because voters across the country are sick and tired of prosecutors being vilified, prosecutors not being allowed to do their jobs, and this whole defund the police movement. You know, Democrats just a couple weeks ago said, wait a second, we're not going to try to defund. We were just kidding. Wrong. The elected officials now are actually putting forth those policies, shocker, they campaigned on.
Wendy, isn't it the job of our elected officials in the city to keep people safe? What do you see in the strategy that would imply that that's also the goal?
You know, safety is a bipartisan value, Emma, and we talk about this every time there's this effort to defund agencies, the purpose of which is to keep citizens safe. So we have to really step back and say, is there a better way to be able to improve public safety? Because if the answer is yes, then that should be the focus. That should be the goal. Remember last summer, those defund the police movements were then followed with refund the police movements, when even those that were very supportive of police reform were really recognizing we need public officials to adopt safety strategies that are smart, not that sap the funds that we need to protect our communities.
Let's focus in on the new mayor as well, Rebecca. A lot of people hopeful that things could turn around from what we'd seen under the de Blasio era, and yet we've already seen signs that he plans to keep these private sector vaccine mandates in place. What does this tell us about Mayor Adams' priorities?
I think it shows he doesn't understand the Constitution, and that is a big problem. I mean, the government just does not have the legal authority, and my legal opinion as an attorney, under the Constitution to mandate these things. And this is going to the Supreme Court. In fact, they're hearing arguments on the mandate today. So I can't wait for us to get some rationality back. You have to understand, people might say, oh, well, we agree. It's for our safety. It's for our protection. But it's a slippery slope in the law. Once the government has that authority, who is to decide, well, this qualifies as something that needs emergency powers and needs our protection, that they can encroach into our personal lives. But this over here, that doesn't. There's just too slippery of a slope. This is why we have had a thin veil between freedom and tyranny that exists across this world, across the nations. And we are going, unfortunately, the route of tyranny for the sake of safety. And that is never a prescription. Ask our founding fathers that works out, Emma. We must pull back. And I hope Eric Adams learns this lesson very, very quickly.
Well, we're going to bring those oral arguments to our viewers, 10 a.m. Eastern, SCOTUS. So stay tuned for that. But let's take a closer look at maybe what the mayor has in store. He's proposing getting people back to work this way with the 3-day work week, saying in part, quote, I say let's start out with the 3-day week to let people see how safe it is to come back to work. Then we cycle back into a 5-day week. We can do this within a 3-week period and be up and operating in our city. John, I know a lot of people who are working from home 5 days a week now. Could this be a way to ease back to normalcy here?
No, you're setting up an expectation to fail, essentially, because as soon as somebody you know has a case of COVID, everybody's going to quickly say, whoops, go back into lockdown. I mean, it's setting up these unrealistic expectations, just like Adams and the Democrats did when they said, get vaccinated and you can't contract the virus, you can't transmit the virus. When you set up these unrealistic expectations and then it doesn't come true, people freak out when the truth is different than what they've messaged. So no, this isn't a good plan. People should be able to make their own decision if and when they want to go back to the workplace or if they want to stay remote.
It also impacts tourists, too. If you think about whether or not you'd like to visit New York City, whether or not you're vaccinated or have proof of vaccination or your kids are vaccinated, Wendy. So it impacts more than just one industry here.
You know, it certainly does. And we saw so many cruise ships turn around when they were full of vaccinated passengers and they were experiencing COVID outbreaks. So in terms of whether you're going back out to have fun or going back to work, you know, in the latter example, I mean, for many people, a profession is more than a paycheck. And the layoffs can be not only disruptive and demoralizing, but remote work doesn't have the same purpose as being in the office. And I would say so, too, in the hospitality industry. You know, we can tour as many virtual museums as we want to online, but there just has to be value when you're going to go to a place like New York City or any place else that has these restrictions, that they be smart and that they be common sense and that they be accommodating to everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's part of the New York City experience. You want to see these shows in person and you'd like for your ticket to work when you've got it booked. Panelists, thank you so much for coming on today. We've got some more to cover on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Much more National Report right after this.
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country.
I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus.
I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country. I'm going to shut down the virus.
I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus.
All right, that was then candidate Joe Biden promising to shut down the virus on the campaign trail. But as we know, cases still surging here.
Even though former members of his own administration are now speaking out, saying the Biden administration needs a new COVID strategy. Panelists are back for reaction. Rebecca Walser, John Thomas, Wendy Patrick. A leading expert who helped create the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine said Tuesday that giving everyone in the world booster shots multiple times per year is not feasible. Take a look on your screen here. It says fourth COVID jab should not be offered until there is more evidence, the head of Britain's vaccine body has said, as he's warned that giving boosters to people every 6 months was, quote, not sustainable. Again, that was on The Telegraph. That was also on CNN.com, which is interesting in itself there, Wendy Patrick, that it's being reported on both sides of the aisle. Just about anyone with any common sense knows that you're not going to defeat a virus, because if you did, you would have defeated influenza. That obviously has been with us for quite some time. Do you see the pivot, Wendy, in the messaging now that we're seeing, not only mainstream media, but former administration officials?
Well, Sean, I think you just queued up the pivot that I hope we begin to see soon, which is we need a boost of common sense. When you're looking at the efficacy waning over time of these just shot after shot after shot. I mean, remember last summer when we thought that the vaccine would prevent us from contracting COVID? So we didn't worry about being symptomatic. We didn't worry about asymptomatic spread. And we certainly didn't think about getting boosted every 6 months or even more frequently than that. I mean, next it's going to be one of those patches that's time released. You get a dose administered every week or so. Because, Sean, what we're looking at in terms of the studies that are coming out is exactly that it looks like efficacy declines by the week. So, yes, we do need a new strategy to try to figure out how this can be sustainable. And I appreciate what you said about, tests are not readily available everywhere. So we've got to have a better strategy.
And if we need a new strategy, maybe, Rebecca, we need a new message. We heard on Tuesday of this week the president still blaming the unvaccinated, saying it is still a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And yet we know that vaccinated and even boosted people can still catch COVID.
Yes, Emma, and I'm so tired of hearing this propaganda from the administration, and it's globally, right? Everybody's saying this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, but if you look at the data and you see the Omicron and you see the hospitalizations, the majority across the globe are of the vaccinated, which goes to Wendy's point that you still can catch Omicron if you're triple vaxxed. Let's step back and let's let the data tell us the science instead of just having all of these pharmaceutical companies that, by the way, have a conflict of interest because they do make money every time another booster gets promulgated. Let's be clear. Let's understand why we went from 98% efficacy to 47% efficacy that requires another booster and another booster and another booster. And perhaps maybe we should say, is this technology working as we expected? And if it's not, why do we just keep getting another booster and making these companies richer? Let's go back to the drawing board, take a moment and have a breather. Let's see what happens. We cannot sustain 6 months every 6 months. And that's just unethical of these pharmaceutical companies to keep pushing.
And if the vaccine obviously were the complete answer to ending the virus, Merck wouldn't make a pill to treat it, nor would Pfizer. But they continue to find other therapeutics, and rightfully so. You want to be able to treat anyone and everyone that you possibly can, right? That's the whole goal here. But John Thomas, you can follow the breadcrumbs. The CDC pulls back the isolation from 10 days down to 5 days. CDC warns against cruise travel. They subtly say that you can transmit even if you're fully vaccinated in those guidelines. There, you can see the Band-Aid being pulled back just ever so slightly and follow that maybe, again, the messaging may soon change, that most folks with common sense understand that the virus is going to be here to stay. It's how you deal with it.
Yeah, the Biden administration seems to be, they're giving mixed messaging, but even the president said earlier this week that maybe there isn't anything the federal government can do to stop this virus. He's even admitting it. And so, yeah, the problem is that the administration leaned in so hard that there was 100% guarantee that we could shut down this virus if we just shut up and take the jab. Multiple jabs. And then when that's not working, the message begins to shift. And at some point, people just don't believe the messaging anymore. And that's the trouble, is that even if there happens to be a shift that is good public policy recommendation at its administration, they've so burned and damaged their credibility that people just aren't going to believe it.
Yeah. We always talk about how it's best to consult your individual physician just to get the best medical recommendation for yourself. If that includes vaccinations, wonderful. That would maybe keep you out of the hospital. Again, that's what we've been told. It'll protect you, but always consult your doctor just to get the best medical recommendation. Panelists, please stick around. We'll be right back.
Well, being dubbed the Great Resignation, the number of Americans quitting their jobs is the highest on record as workers take advantage of strong employer demand to pursue other, and some say better, opportunities.
A record 4.5 million Americans left their jobs for the month of November. Our panelists are back in with us, Rebecca, John, and Wendy. Wendy, what do you make of the big move?
Well, I think it's great for people to have the opportunity to trade up. I mean, there is this job demand. There's been a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of resignations and a lot of retirements, Emma and Sean, but before, the pandemic, we had people retiring when they were supposed to. But this pandemic pause really made people rethink their priorities. And those vacancies have created opportunities for others in lower paying jobs to really find something better. And when we have these no shot, no salary rules, you got a lot of people that are simply going to go elsewhere where there are more accommodations that are going to be made.
The other story that comes out of this, Rebecca, I think, too, is just how passionate Americans are about their beliefs. There are people that would leave their job because of the mandate, which, coincidentally enough, is being held in the Supreme Court today. That is happening.
It absolutely is happening, Sean, and it's a time that everyone take notice of it. I hear a lot of people say, well, my job is requiring me to do this. And I thought to myself, this is a voluntary position. There's no enslavement that I'm aware of in the United States of America anymore today. And so you can leave. It's of your own free will. And that's what we're seeing, Sean. We're seeing a mass exodus of people for a variety of reasons, but the mandate's certainly at the top of the list. And we know this because there's actually been people that have asked and said, why are you leaving? And it's because the mandate is taking effect. January, December, November. We saw this September, October. We have seen this as a trailing situation that is only exacerbating as we get closer and closer to different vaccine mandate deadlines. And people can walk with their feet and leave. And I think they should, if their convictions are holding them, they should absolutely leave with their convictions. They will find something else eventually.
Yeah, a number of reasons as to what's motivating people to leave their jobs. We did get some job numbers in this morning, 199,000 199,000 jobs added in December. John, they were anticipating about 400,000, so a big miss on the jobs front.
Yeah, I mean, a huge miss. And really what, the panelists have all made excellent points, but I think one of the things we're also not covering here is that small businesses can't find employees to operate their businesses. So small businesses are suffering, you see it at, of course, the local fast food restaurants. I mean, they're willing to pay anything. There's a local sign in my neighborhood that says, as long as you show up, we'll give you a job. I mean, the hurdle is not high for these businesses right now because they can't find workers. And if our small businesses can't find workers, they're going to have to shut down.
Yeah, Wendy Patrick, on the heels of that, we report these numbers whenever they come out, and it seems it's always a miss. It's always 50% off. It's not even a small number every time. Why?
No, you're right. I mean, you mentioned the 199. That's down from 249,000 in November. But as Emma pointed out, I mean, we missed the mark by so much. And, Sean, we are feeling this, all of us. I mean, how many of us got flight cancellations over the holidays? You mentioned the hospitality industry. So many plans are being canceled. And even small businesses that offer services community-wise are having to shut down because they can't get the workers that they need. So it's not something that just affects the people that are applying for the jobs. It's something that all of us feel, and we have been feeling even more so since those job numbers were recorded, Sean, which was December. I shudder to think what it's going to be in February, reporting on January.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with the spike in cases. Again, 199,000 jobs added. They expected 400,000, but unemployment fell to 3.9%. Rebecca Walser, John Thomas, Wendy Patrick, thank you very much. All right, coming up, it's a winter wonderland for much of the eastern seaboard with 7 or more inches in some spots. We'll show you next.
After this.